She had a smug look on her face. It was the face of someone who truly believed they held all the cards, that they were in a position of overwhelming superiority. It was infuriating, really. My deepest condolences. Give my regards to your husband. I hope you two can make the most of your remaining years together, she said with a smirk. The audacity, the disrespect. What kind of woman says something like that? It was too much, even for her. She was clearly lacking in basic human decency. I wanted to confront her arrogant attitude head-on, to put her in her place. But I restrained myself. This woman deserved a punishment far more fitting. One that would make her suffer, make her cry and beg for forgiveness. I'm divorcing my husband. It's what he wants too, I said coldly. She seemed displeased by my lack of emotional reaction. Her eyes narrowed, fixing me with a hostile glare. I met her gaze unflinchingly. There was no reason to be afraid of this woman. I was going to use every ounce of my strength to send her straight to hell. I played my first card. My name is Kate. I'm 41 years old. I work as a sales administrator at a specialized trading company. I met my husband Gordon through a mutual acquaintance. At the time, I was 29. He was 30. I remember my dad being shocked that I had found a boyfriend. A wallflower like you, getting married? Impossible, he had said. Both my dad and mom thought it was beyond me. Frankly, I was surprised myself. I had always assumed I would remain single forever. The fact that Gordon had been the more proactive one was a blessing for a shy woman like me. I want 2 kids. A girl first, then a boy, he had said. Me too. Let's work hard together from now on, I had replied with a smile. We were so happy in the early days of our marriage. I thought that bliss would last forever. But where did it all go wrong? His attitude towards me gradually grew colder. What triggered this change in him? Was it because we couldn't conceive a child, despite our best efforts? We both underwent fertility tests and confirmed there were no abnormalities. We tried everything, timing it right, watching our diets, you name it. But sadly, years went by and we still couldn't get pregnant. I wonder why. Even the doctor at the clinic had said, shaking his head. I suggested to him that we try in vitro fertilization. But no, let's just leave it up to nature. There's no need to force it. If it happens, it happens, he said dismissively. What's gotten into you? Don't you want children anymore? I asked, taken aback. I didn't say that, did I? I just said I want to let nature take its course, he snapped. Looking back, that was when his attitude towards me really started to change. He became extremely cold, even rough in the way he spoke to me. No matter how much I tried to mend our relationship, he remained distant. Even when I reached out, he no longer responded with the warmth he once had. Hey, why don't we go on a trip during your next vacation? Remember that hotel we stayed at a few years ago? I suggested tentatively. I'll pass. I have plans for my next time off. Didn't I tell you? I have a business trip to the neighboring state, he said curtly. Oh, really? Sorry, I didn't hear about that, I stammered. He showed no interest, whether I invited him on a trip or out to dinner. It felt like he had long since lost any interest in me. Eventually, he stopped using any words around me except for shower and dinner. Our conversations ceased entirely, and I too grew quieter. Maybe if we could just have a child, something would change. With that in mind, I even took the initiative myself a few times. For a shy woman like me, mustering the courage to make the first move was a big deal. But it was the worst. Even though he knew what I was asking for, he just laughed through his nose and mocked me. "Sorry, I'm just too tired from work. I don't have the energy to deal with you," he said dismissively. "Oh, I see. Well, if that's the case, I'm not saying you have to force yourself, but..." I trailed off, my voice small. The humiliation I felt when he rejected me that day still haunts me. I was too scared and embarrassed to initiate anything after that. When one spouse continually refuses intimacy without any particular reason. In some cases, I've heard, that can be grounds for divorce. I even asked Gordon point blank once, wanting to know why he was rejecting me. "Hey, do you not want kids anymore? Do you just not care at this point?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "What the hell? Where is this coming from all of a sudden? I never said I felt that way," he snapped. "Then why are you being so cold to me? Can't you see you're contradicting yourself?" I pressed, my frustration mounting. "Ugh, just drop it already. You're making a fool of yourself, getting all desperate like this. It's really annoying," he groaned. He clicked his tongue and turned his back on me. Soon, he stopped engaging with me altogether. When he was home, he was always glued to his smartphone or the TV, never speaking a word to me. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. He stopped saying even basic things like shower or dinner. Since he would just ignore me when I called out to him, I gradually stopped trying to talk to him too. My sighs grew more frequent. My loneliness deepened. What was the reason for all this? No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't figure it out. He was cheating on me. I realized it in the fall, around our 8th year of marriage. How did I find out? By chance, I happened to see his smartphone. He always took it into the shower with him, but that day, he accidentally left it in the living room. A call came in on that smartphone. The caller's name was Maria. As far as I knew, there was no one by that name among his relatives or friends. Was it a business contact? But the casual way the name was registered didn't seem to fit someone so important. My suspicions aroused, I asked Gordon about it directly as soon as he got out of the shower. "Looks like you got a call from someone named Maria earlier. Who is that?" I questioned. "No one important," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "It can't be no one. They're in your contacts, after all." I pressed, my voice taut. "I meant it's none of your business. Stop nagging me. I'm tired," he grumbled. There he goes again, I thought. He thinks he can shut me down by saying he's tired. Apparently, he doesn't like being questioned about Maria. Which means she's probably his mistress. His non-answer was answer enough. I was so furious I could hardly sleep that night. A few days later, something truly awful happened. I got word from a relative that my dad had passed away in a car accident. I had already lost my mom to illness when I was in high school. After that, it was just me and my dad living together. Losing my precious dad on top of that. My grief was profound. And yet, Gordon. "Sorry, but I can't make it to the funeral. I have a business trip scheduled," he said flatly. "What? Can't you just call your company and have someone cover for you?" I cried, aghast. "The timing is too tight. There's no way I can find a replacement now. So I can't go," he said with finality. In the end, he really didn't come to the funeral. Even though the man who died was his father-in-law. Gordon clearly doesn't care about me or my family. That realization hit me hard. I was heartbroken, devastated. I had to do something to win back his heart. That determination drove me to take bold action. I hired a private investigator. I didn't care how much it cost. I requested a background check, and the results came in about 2 months later. Using the information I obtained, I called out his mistress for a meeting. We met at a nice cafe on the first floor of a hotel. In a word, the woman who showed up was a clear beauty with a strong aura about her. "Nice to meet you. You're Maria, right?" I said, my tone carefully neutral. "You called me here knowing that, didn't you?" "So? What do you want?" she asked bluntly. "I want you to end your relationship with him," I said, meeting her gaze. "You'll have to take that up with him. He's the one seeking out my services, after all," she retorted. Maria was a fake name. Her real name was Layla. She provided questionable services to men for money. She claimed she was merely meeting with them at their request. It was purely a business relationship, nothing more. That seemed to be the point Maria, or rather Layla, was trying to make. Her attitude was infuriating beyond words. "Do you understand? Blaming me is completely misdirected. And you, wife, have you reflected on your own role in this? Do you know why your husband seeks out services like mine?" she asked pointedly. "Are you saying it's my fault?" I retorted, my voice tight. "Who else could it be? It's because you're not satisfying your husband that he has no choice but to turn to professionals like me. Am I wrong?" she said with a smirk. What a brazen woman. But I couldn't say anything back. I had no idea how to counter her accusation. Laughing derisively at me as I hung my head, Maria stood up and left without any hesitation. I felt so pathetic, I couldn't hold back my tears. I'm sure Gordon heard from Maria that I had met with her. His behavior grew even bolder, and the frequency increased from before. He started staying out all night or coming home in the morning without any prior notice. When he acts like that, naturally, my attitude changes too. I gradually became numb, no longer saying anything about Gordon's actions. "Another night out? Must be nice. Were you with Maria?" "Oh, I mean Layla," I said flatly. "That's none of your business," he snapped. "You're leaving your wife alone to spend the night with another woman, and you have the nerve to say it's none of my business?" I shot back. "I'm tired. Stop nagging me," he grumbled. Pushing past me, Gordon headed for the shower. The cloying scent of perfume clung to his body. No doubt Layla had sprayed it on thick when they parted, deliberately sending a message to me. It was a blatant provocation. She was taunting me, taking pleasure in it. A few years ago, I might have risen to the challenge, tried to fight back somehow. But now, I didn't feel that way at all. Fighting would be pointless. I couldn't shake the feeling that it would only exhaust me. I found myself no longer feeling much of a desire to win back Gordon's affections. Let's get a divorce. That's what I honestly thought. I had been deliberately avoiding thinking about it all this time. I had clung to the feeling that we were married, for better or worse. I had held out hope that someday Gordon and I would come to understand each other. But it was no use anymore. It was impossible. I felt like any effort I put in would be wasted. I felt pathetic for having spent 10 years thinking that way. I prepared the divorce papers, had a friend fill in the witness section, and slowly got everything in order. But then, life is strange, isn't it? As soon as I had made up my mind to divorce, a different problem arose. He started complaining of poor health. Tests revealed that he had cancer. Confined to a hospital bed for an extended stay, Gordon wryly commented that he was being punished. "This is my comeuppance for making you suffer, Kate. How does it feel? Pretty good, I bet. He said with a bitter laugh. Don't be stupid. Why don't you stop saying things like that and focus on your treatment? I replied, my tone even. Honestly, it would be a lie to say it didn't feel good. Forgive my language, but a part of me definitely thought, serves you right. But I hadn't fallen so far as to say that to a sick man's face. I told myself I would calmly take care of him as his partner, keeping my feelings in check. It was a little while after Gordon's illness came to light that I noticed something strange about my belongings. My mother's keepsake ring was missing. When I looked closer, I realized necklaces, bags, and other items were gone too. The next time I brought a change of clothes to the hospital, I explained the situation to Gordon and asked if he knew anything. You didn't take them without asking, did you? If you know something, please tell me. I said. I don't know anything. I've never touched your belongings without permission. He replied. When was the last time you were in contact with Layla? I asked, my eyes narrowing. Are you saying Layla stole them? No way. I haven't heard from her in about half a year. He said dismissively. He might say no way, but I couldn't think of any other suspects. It seemed Gordon truly didn't know anything. In that case, I'd have to confirm with the person in question. Besides, I had actually taken all possible precautions in case something like this happened. It would be a hassle and take some time, but I decided I would check when I got home. Depending on what I found, I might have to consult with the police and a lawyer afterward. A month later, Gordon was scheduled for surgery. The doctor who saw his body reportedly turned pale. I was shocked when I heard about it from the nurse. I hadn't seen Gordon undressed in ages, so I had no idea. I never imagined his body had gotten to that state. I listened to the details from the nurse and took notes. The day after that, I called Layla out for another meeting. This time we met at a different cafe. It was a much larger, more crowded establishment. Layla arrived with the same nonchalant air as before. Her attitude was brazen. She wore an expression that said she had done nothing wrong. So what is it today? I'd appreciate if we could keep this brief, she said bluntly. That depends on you. By the way, have you heard about Gordon getting cancer? I asked. Yes, I heard. From him directly. He said he wasn't feeling well, and I hadn't received any requests from him for a while. Then he suddenly dropped that bombshell. Quite a shock, let me tell you. She replied. I see. Well, the surgery was successful, so I thought I should let you know that too, for what it's worth. I said neutrally. Layla laughed and said, That's good. But she seemed completely indifferent. I suppose that made sense. According to her, Gordon was just a client, nothing more. Even if they seemed to share a deep connection, it was probably all superficial. Not getting overly emotionally invested in clients. I imagined that was Layla's approach to her work. A mischievous glint appeared in her eye. She leaned in, peering up at my face. Hey, wife. Before your husband departs for the other world, why not let him have you one more time? You know how they say at the very end, humans try to leave behind descendants, she said with a smirk. Stop that. Saying things like that is incredibly disrespectful. I snapped. But it's the truth, isn't it? You've been struggling, unable to have a child. Why not bet on this last chance? Who knows, you might just conceive, she said, grinning broadly, laughing with her mouth wide open. For the first time, I felt clear hostility from Layla. I'll put this woman in her place. That thought resonated powerfully within me. Can we get to the point? Layla, you had more than just a professional relationship with my husband, didn't you? In other words, you were having an affair. Isn't that right? I asked bluntly. No way. That's not true at all. It was strictly business. She insisted. Really? Because I'm planning to send a certified letter to your home, I said, watching her closely. That would be a waste of time. I've had similar things happen a few times before. It's such a pain. No matter how much I explain that it's just work, people don't seem to understand, she said with a laugh. Layla was smiling, but I didn't miss the slight tension in her expression. It was different from the carefree smile she had worn until now. There was a hint of stiffness to it. She was definitely lying. This was clearly a forced smile. That's a lie. You're worried about what would happen if I actually sent that certified letter, aren't you? I pressed. No, I'm not. You're being tedious. Haven't you been told that you're annoying when you get like this? She said, her tone sharp. What an infuriating woman. She seemed to think she had the clear upper hand. But I could see right through her now. This aggressive attitude was nothing but a bluff. The real Layla was carrying around a lot of secrets that she couldn't afford to have exposed. There might still be time, you know? If you admit that you were cheating with Gordon and apologize properly, that would be the path of least damage for you, I said evenly. Don't act like you know everything. You failure of a wife who can't even satisfy her own husband. I hate it when defective women like you get all high and mighty with me, she sneered. Oh, is that so? If you're going to be like that, I guess I have no choice. It looks like I'll have to tell your husband Harold everything, I said calmly. What? Wait. Why are you bringing up Harold? She sputtered, her eyes wide. That's right. Layla was actually married. She had hidden the fact that she was married from Gordon. And she had no doubt assumed I only knew what Gordon had told me. But I had hired a private investigator to look into Layla and Gordon's relationship, and of course, I had already had them investigate Layla's background as well. She was married. She and her husband Harold had been married for 5 years. The moment I pointed out that she was married, Layla's composure crumbled. Her breathing grew ragged. What's wrong? Your breathing seems rather heavy. Why don't you try to calm down? I asked coolly. That would be a problem. The certified letter would be a problem. I haven't told Harold about this job. Please don't tell him. Harold has nothing to do with this. This is between me and you and your husband, right? She pleaded, her voice trembling. Are you serious? You think I'm just going to say, okay, I understand? Don't underestimate me. I'll have you know, I'm not that much of a pushover, I said firmly. The tables had already turned. Sweat beading on her forehead, she was visibly shaken. She had no idea what I knew or how much. She had clearly not expected me to fight back like this. She must have assumed I was the dull, meek woman Gordon had described. Honestly, I was quite surprised myself. I had never known I could be so bold and assertive in front of others. That's how strong my anger was. Layla herself had given me the push I needed to change. After all, she had done something absolutely unforgivable. I leaned forward, glaring at her. Layla, I am furious with you. Not only did you have an affair with Gordon, but you also committed a crime. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I said, my voice low and intense. What? What do you mean? I don't know, she stammered. Don't play dumb. You stole my mother's keepsake ring, didn't you? I accused. The customers at the surrounding tables were staring at us. Layla hunched her shoulders and shrank into herself, avoiding eye contact. Her body language was as good as a confession. I didn't let up on my interrogation of Layla. And the bags and necklaces too. You snuck into my room and stole them, didn't you? I pressed. No, that's not. Those were Gordon. He said I could borrow them. She protested weakly. Lies, all lies. I checked with him, and he had no idea my mother's keepsakes had disappeared. Hey Layla, why don't you just give up and come clean? I said, my tone steely. I turned my smartphone screen toward her. She instantly turned deathly pale. It was no wonder. On the screen was an image of her rifling through my room. She had the pitiful, incriminating look of a common thief. Ever since I started suspecting his behavior, I had installed hidden cameras and voice recorders all over the room. I've gathered quite a bit of interesting evidence, I said with a triumphant smile. No way! Hidden cameras? Where did you put? She gasped. I told you, all over the room. Including the bedroom, of course. I have crystal clear footage of you and Gordon doing this and that. What a shame, I said mockingly. If I submitted this evidence to the police, her guilt would surely be proven. Charged with theft, she would likely face a fine as punishment. She was nearly in tears now. She clasped her hands together, looking at me imploringly. Please! I'll find a way to get the ring back. I swear I'll return it to you. Just don't say anything to Harold. I'm begging you. I'm in real trouble here. I haven't told him anything about this. She pleaded desperately. This is the worst. You sold my mother's keepsake? And all my necklaces and bags too. I can't believe this. You're going to tell me all the details later, you hear me? I said, my voice shaking with anger. I am so sorry. But I really will find a way to get them back somehow, so please, just keep quiet about this to him. I'm begging you, like this, she said, bowing her head low. Too late for that, I'm afraid. Because, I said, pointing behind Layla. Layla's face twisted in shock as she turned around. Sitting at the table behind her was her husband, Harold. She let out a short scream. How pitiful she looked, falling apart as she cried out in disbelief. But even more pitiful was Harold. He had known nothing. Until I contacted him, he had apparently thought Layla was a quiet, chaste wife. Layla. I'm in shock. Not only were you cheating on me, but you were doing that kind of work too. Was my income alone not enough to satisfy you? He said, his voice heavy with pain. No, that's... Harold, listen. She stammered. Layla, or should I call you Maria? You were a dominatrix, huh? During the day, behind my back, you were pleasuring countless men. I'm so stunned, he said, shaking his head. Harold! It's not like that! Layla cried out. Finally, she burst into tears. It seemed to devastate her that Harold now knew everything. It turned out Layla was known at the shop for her skill in dominatrix play. She was apparently adept at tying men up and exciting them with whips and such. The doctor who saw Gordon's back had been shocked. There were marks from being whipped. I myself hadn't known he had such tastes until he confessed it to me directly. I trusted you, so this cuts deep. The cheating, the dominatrix thing, the theft. I couldn't believe any of it. But it's all true, isn't it? Harold said, his eyes glistening with unshed tears.
That's not. I'm sorry. But it's not.
Layla sobbed. What's not true? It's all facts, isn't it? Why don't you properly admit it? I said coldly. I felt bad for Harold, but Layla needed to acknowledge her crimes. I couldn't care less about her dominatrix work. The real issues were the other two. The cheating and the theft. When I said we should go to the police station together, Layla clung to the table, resisting.
No way! I'm not going, no matter what. I won't move from this spot, even if it kills me.
Layla cried defiantly.
You're being stubborn, Layla. Cut it out already.
Harold snapped. That's right, Layla. If you keep being so selfish, I might have to resort to my next move. Are you okay with that? Even if it makes your position even worse? I said, my tone ominous.
What? What do you mean?
Layla asked, her face a mask of shock. But she must have realized the truth. She had other secrets she didn't want to be exposed. If only she had come clean quickly, I wouldn't have to do this. I turned my smartphone screen towards the obstinate Layla once more.
Hey Layla! I heard about this. What's the meaning of this? You were married.
A man's voice rang out from the screen.
Ian. No, I don't want this. Why? Why did you have to bring Ian into this too?
Layla wailed. The man on the screen was around our age. His name was Ian. He was another one of Layla's affair partners. She had started seeing him before Gordon and dumped him first. And she hadn't just dumped him. She had put Ian through hell.
Sorry, but when I do something, I do it thoroughly. I had every little thing investigated. Like how you borrowed a hefty sum from Ian here and then ran.
I said coldly.
Borrowed money and ran away. Layla, you did that too.
Harold exclaimed, aghast.
Layla, you better pay back the $25,000 you still owe me.
Ian shouted through the screen.
I am sorry. I'm so sorry.
Layla sobbed. Layla wasn't just a dominatrix. She was a dominatrix with sticky fingers and expensive tastes. She would form personal, intimate relationships with clients and, in most cases, squeeze money out of them. Or else she would steal valuables. And then she would convert them to cash. My mother's keepsake ring had been stolen while Gordon was in the shower. I had confirmed it by cross-referencing footage from another camera at the same time, so there was no mistake. When I laid it all out like that, Layla must have realized there was no way out. She burst into tears. I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. She whimpered. Sorry isn't going to cut it, is it? I'm calling the police now, got it? I said firmly.
Anything but that. Please. I'll do anything.
Layla begged.
That's what I'm saying, it's not that kind of problem. You need to properly atone for your crimes.
I said, my voice rising. It was possible that her crimes didn't end there. There was no guarantee that there weren't other men she had victimized before Ian. When I said as much, Harold let out a deep sigh. His face said he couldn't take it anymore. Let's get a divorce, Layla. Please. I can't do this with you anymore. He said heavily.
Harold! No! Don't say that! You're going to abandon me!
She cried, her voice shrill. What choice do I have?
There aren't many men out there who could stick with a partner after learning she's been doing shady things with other men on a regular basis.
I know I can't, Harold said firmly.
No! I absolutely refuse to get divorced,
Layla shouted through her tears. But no matter how much she protested, it was probably futile. The things she had done up until now were incredibly malicious, and some of it was criminal. If their discussions broke down and they filed for mediation in court, it was virtually guaranteed the divorce would go through. Perhaps Layla was resisting so desperately because she knew that's how it would end up. Harold turned to face me. Kate, I am truly sorry for all of this. Layla and I will take responsibility for finding your mother's keepsake ring and returning it to you without fail. Layla, you apologize properly too, he commanded. Yes. Kate, I'm very sorry, she mumbled.
I understand. I'm counting on you to handle the ring. And please return the money to Ian as well. Then, go turn yourself in at the police station and explain everything properly,
I said sternly. Layla slumped over the table, sobbing. The other customers and staff in the cafe were staring at us, wondering what was going on. It was a pathetic sight, but honestly, I thought she deserved it. She had caused too much suffering for those around her. It was only natural for her to go through something this painful. Afterward, Harold apologized to Ian as well and promised to pay back the money without fail. And with that, our discussion, which had been completely derailed by Layla, finally came to an end. A few days after our confrontation at the cafe, I received a message from Harold on my smartphone. He had managed to buy back the ring from the purchaser and would send it to me later. I was truly grateful for his swift response. I'm sure my mother would be happy too. The divorce from Layla went through. She put up quite a fight, but after going to the police, she quieted down. I guess she didn't want to drag it out any further, Harold said. I see. So where is she now? At the police station? I asked. No. She was sentenced to a fine, and I think she's probably back in her hometown now. It's a small rural town. She hated it there, which is why she came to the city, he explained. So she had slunk back to the hometown she despised. Apparently, Harold paid back her debt to Ian on her behalf. Now she is gradually paying back that debt to him. The job she chose was a part-time employee at a local supermarket. Who knows when she'll finish repaying it? I hope she does her best. Harold also told me one more thing about Layla. When they divorced, he refused to give her a share of their assets. Honestly, I didn't want to split assets with a woman who had been cheating, borrowing money, and acting as a dominatrix behind my back, he explained. So you refuse to divide the assets? Normally in a divorce, the assets accumulated during the marriage are split 50-50ths, right? I asked. Yes. She insisted on half, so we ended up going to court, he said. Unfortunately, Harold's claim was rejected. Apparently, you can't refuse to divide assets, no matter the reason. However, the fact remained that Layla had cheated and committed theft. Those facts wouldn't disappear. In the end, she had to pay Harold compensation and damages as part of the divorce proceedings. As a result, the assets Layla was left with were significantly reduced. She apparently wailed that it was unbelievable, but it was her own doing. It's the punishment she deserves. I think she should just work hard and pay back the rest of her debt to him as soon as possible. By the way, Kate, what happened with your sick husband after that? Harold asked. Well, we got divorced too, and that was that.
He said I didn't need to come to the hospital anymore. I suppose that's his way of reflecting on his actions.
I said quietly. Gordon's surgery was successful. But there's no guarantee they won't find the cancer has spread in the future. He said he didn't want to cause me any more trouble and told me I didn't need to visit. I'll never forget the distant look in his eyes on the day of our last visit. That's also when I had him sign the divorce papers. Thank you. I'll go submit these then. I don't think I'll come here again, but... Are you sure this is okay? I had asked. Yeah. Don't worry about me anymore. Kate, I'm sorry. He said heavily. Goodbye. I whispered. And that was the last I saw him. In a sense, his grave illness is already a punishment. I have no intention of blaming him any further. But we'll probably never meet again. The desire-driven actions of one woman brought misery to so many people. I'm one of those victims. When I think about it, I still feel incredibly angry. But I was able to mete out an appropriate punishment and see her sobbing face. I was also able to impose social sanctions, so for now, I think it's enough. About 6 months after my divorce, I got a new boyfriend. He's a handsome man my age who was introduced to me by a supervisor at a client company. He's also divorced, so I don't have to worry about this and that, which is nice and relaxed. I don't know if we'll get married, but I hope we can continue our comfortable relationship. I don't need to get hung up on the form of marriage. There are many shapes happiness can take, after all. Together with my current boyfriend, I want to gradually find a way of being that suits us. These days, I live each day with that open-minded outlook.